But first, hello, I'm John Bachman. President Obama focusing on Ferguson right now at the White House. He's holding a cabinet-level meeting this hour to talk about the program that sends military equipment to local police forces. Agencies across the country took heat after those military-style equipment was used during the protests after the shooting death of Michael Brown over the summer. Meanwhile, demonstrators are keeping up the pressure for federal charges against former Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson after a local grand jury decided not to indict him.
We said the first rally we didn't trust the local grand jury. That's why we wanted the federal grand jury. That's why we still are going to fight for it, and we're not going to stop marching and protesting until we do.
Well, Wilson resigned from the Ferguson police force over the weekend after being told about threats being made against other officers. Ferguson's mayor says Wilson will not receive any severance package as part of his resignation. And police unions in St. Louis are demanding an apology after this protest by some members of the Rams at yesterday's game, taking the field with their hands up, the pose used by so many protesters in Ferguson. But police say that ignores the evidence that Brown didn't have his hands up and was charging Wilson when he was shot. NFL running back Ray Rice is now free to sign with another team, but it's not clear if anybody wants him. An arbiter for the NFL overturned the league's indefinite suspension of Rice after video surfaced of him punching his wife in an Atlantic City elevator. His wife, Janae, talked to the Today Show this morning and talked about forgiving her husband.
Everybody makes mistakes. After this whole situation, you would think that we lived in a country full of people who never made a mistake.
Well, some teams have reportedly shown a bit of interest in Rice, but he has not signed anywhere yet. And the search is on in Europe for would-be terrorists targeting passenger planes. London Sunday Express says officials have uncovered a plot to bomb 5 jets in Europe sometime before Christmas using bombs and carry-on luggage. The paper says officials in Europe may start forcing devices like smartphones to be packed in checked luggage so they can't trigger a bomb. And Congress back to work today has a big job ahead of it and needs to be done quickly, figuring out what to do with the budget. The resolution funding the government runs out in less than 2 weeks, putting money for everything from fighting Ebola to the war against ISIS in jeopardy. Members of Congress are hoping to have a new comprehensive budget done in time, but they may need to resort to yet another continuing resolution to avoid a government shutdown. And another ISIS attack in Iraq, and this time at a checkpoint along the Syrian border. At least 16 Iraqi police officers have been killed at that checkpoint in the Iraqi town of Al-Walid. This comes after the UN says more than 1,200 Iraqis were killed in acts of terrorism or violence just recently. And Pope Francis has wrapped up a 3-day trip to Turkey by visiting refugees from Syria and Iraq. The refugees, many of them children, have been in Turkey for weeks after fleeing the bullets of ISIS. Another update coming up for you in 30 minutes. Now back to Midpoint.